Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear students, welcome to our new video with A Tale of Two Cities, which was written by Charles Dickens. Mr. Waleed will be with you, inshallah. Let's now let's now remember Dr. Manet. Dr. Manet was imprisoned for 18 years in the Bastille. Lucy Manet went to Paris to see her father in Saint Anthony, the poorest area in Paris. Her father now was with his old servant, Monsieur Defarge. Monsieur Defarge is an innkeeper. He kept her father with him because he wanted to use him against the noblemen. Dr. Manet was greatly changed and affected by his long imprisonment. After 18 years of imprisonment he was a wreck of a man. بقى بقايا إنسان كده، يعني 18 سنة حبس. He suffered mentally and physically. What does this mean, suffered mentally and physically? Physically by old age, and mentally he entered this prison while he was a scientist, but now he was only a shoemaker, بقى صانع أحذية. He came out of prison with a loss of memory and no career in life. خلاص كبر. His mind was affected and he could remember nothing in the past. خلاص ما يحفظش حاجة غير اسمه. Only his name, but his name. And his name was not Alexander Manet for himself. But why? He identified himself with the name of 105 North Tower. 105 North Tower. This was his number at the Bastille. He got used to being locked up and to obeying orders. متعود دايما على الحبسة وطاعة الأوامر. He had learned shoemaking in prison. Whenever he had relapse he continued to do so. اتعلم ازاي يبقى يعمل أعزكم الله صانع أحذية. And when he had relapse اما كانت بتجيله انتكاسة تاني بعد ما يخف، ودي هنعرفها قدام شوية. He continued to do so. When we first saw him, he appeared very old with hollow face and natural large eyes, long white beard and hair. His eyes were vacant and still. عجوز كده في نفسه قوي يا جماعة، وقاعد ساكت وما بيتكلمش ولما يجي حتى يتكلم يعني صوته صعب جدا. ليه؟ صوته زي ما يكون ايه يعني fainted as a result of lack of practice. He was always silent، محبوس على طول. When he answered the question, when Monsieur Defarge told him that he had a visitor, I'm sorry, he had a visitor, he looked at Mr. Lurie. Mr. Lurie asked them, do you remember me, Dr. Manat? Do you remember an old friend from Tellson's Bank? سكت. قال له طب tell him your name. قال له my name is 105 North Tower. كان صوته ساعتها fainted. Okay? And that expressed how he suffered a lot in this imprisonment. After 5 years, Lucy Manette took her father back quickly to England. And after 5 years, there was a trial. Who was in this picture? Charles Darnley or Charles Darnley. He was an Englishman. It is supposed to be an Englishman, but in reality, he was a Frenchman. And we are going to know his story right well. Now, Charles Darnay was a Frenchman about 25 years old. He was accused of passing English government secrets to the French king. اتقبض عليه يا جماعة بتهمة الايه treason أو high treason، الخيانة. طب for what reasons؟ ايه الأسباب اللي اتسجن عليها ديت أو اللي هيتحاكم بيها؟ He was accused of high treason and the evidence ايه بقى؟ The evidence against him was that he had been seen traveling between England and France several times. طب وفيها ايه المشكلة لما يسافر واجي على طول كده بين فرنسا وانجلترا وهم جنب بعض؟ And lists of army information were found in his pockets. لقوا بقى ايه لستة كده لظباط في جيبه. Lucy said that he traveled under assumed name. on secret business. ودته في داهية. هي بتقول إن هو قال لها إن هو بيسافر تحت اسمه مستعار. The unknown witness saw him exchange papers with another man in a hotel near an army camp. حلو. ادي الأدلة اللي كانت ايه ضده، ودلوقتي هو محاكمته. تمام. Mr. Stryver. Who is Mr. Stryver? Mr. Stryver was a famous lawyer in France. Okay? And he's going to speak for Darnley in the court. Mr. Stryver proved to the court that Darnley had to travel between England and France due to some family affairs. هيبدأ يمسكهم دليل دليل ويكسرهم. أول حاجة هو بيسافر من هنا لهنا ليه؟ Because of family affairs. He's a French man and he works in England as a French teacher. Okay? The papers which the judge had were not in Darnay's handwriting. مش بخط ايده يا جماعة. Okay. Some witnesses. Now the first witness, John Barsad. John Barsad عامل فيها وطني شوية يا جماعة. John Barsad had been a friend of Darnay. He claimed to be patriotic. And he reported Darnay's treason. هو اللي بلغ عن جريمة الخيانة العظمى ديت. Stryver speaking for Darnay اللي هو المحامي بتاعي showed that Barsad had been in prison. ادي أول حاجة. had cheated while gambling. إنه اتحبس قبل كده وهو بيغش. كان بيغش وهو بيعمل إيه يا جماعة؟ تخيلوا وهو بيلعب قمار. And had borrowed money from Darnay and had never paid it back. وكان بيستلف منه فلوس. يعني خلاه كله على بعضه كده مجرم ملوش لازمة. So his testimony was of no value. ادي طنش أول witness. The second witness, Roger Cly. Roger Cly, the second witness, had been Darnay's servant. While بيقول بقى ايه Roger Cly, while arranging Darnay's clothes, he had found list of arms in his pockets. قال يعني وانا بفتش هدومه يا جماعة ايدي وهي بترتب دخلت في جيبه، ايدي وهي دخلت في جيبه طلعت ورق وغصب عني قريته. فطلع ايه؟ فطلع ورق يخص القوات المسلحة وقتها. He had later said seen Darnay show these lists to some French gentlemen. طيب هتعمل ايه يا عم سترايفر؟ Stryver also proved that Roger Cly was a thief, a liar, Barsad's friend. كفاية بس ان هو صاحب برسات. Okay? And partner وشريكه في كذا عمليات سرقة. So his testimony was not taken. Mr. Lorry and Dr. Manet. Mr. Lorry, do you remember the Dover Mail or the Dover Mile as it said in the movie? Mr. Lorry had traveled with Darnay on the mail to Dover, but he was unable to identify him because all the passengers were wrapped up حاطين مخبيين وشهم كده زي نقاب كده يا جماعة. Mr. Lorry said that he had spent all the journey sleeping or lying on the sofa and he didn't see anything. يعني ما شافش مين بيبدل مع مين ورق. Dr. Manet was in a very bad condition and could remember nothing يا جماعة. كان في حالة يرثى لها بقى لسه خارج من السجن. لوسي مانيت. لوسي مانيت had spoken to Darnay. هي بقى اللي هتوديه في داهية بقى. بص بتقول يا جماعة. She had spoken to Darnay on the boat from France. In the court she said that he had told her that he was traveling on a delicate business that might get people into trouble. أوبا أنا مسافر في شغل ممكن يأذي ناس. There were two French gentlemen with him. هي اللي بتقول كان معاه اتنين gentlemen. وديني في داهية يلا بقى. She saw them passing papers around and whispering. وشفتهم يا حضرة القاضي بيعملوا ايه؟ قال بيتوشوشوا بيبدلوا ورق. لبست الراجل مصيبة. Darnay had noted that Dr. Manet looked weak and had advised Lucy on how to protect him from the wind and the weather. طبعا عمل معاه خدمة. She didn't want to return his kindness by testifying against him. Stryver also proved that the papers were not in Darnay's handwriting. مش بخط ايده. The unknown witness. طبعا مستر سترايفل يعني كسر كل الشهادات اللي فاتت بس دي مشكلة بقى اللي جاية دي. Listen carefully please. The unknown witness. The sixth witness was asked if he had ever seen anyone who looked like the prisoner. The sixth witness said that he had seen this prisoner before near a camp. اوكي، والراجل ده بقى لا هو بيشرب ولا حرامي ولا نصاب ولا خاين ولا اي حاجه. طب هتعمل ايه يا عم سترايفر في ديت؟ سيدني كارتون. Oh, who is Sydney Carton? Sydney Carton is the assistant of Mr. Stryver. Sydney Carton was the real lawyer. هو يا جماعة اللي بيدي كل حاجة لمستر سترايفر. تمام؟ وأنصح منه كمان، وهنعرف بعدين مين هو سيدني كارتون. Sydney Carton noted that the resemblance between himself and Darnay. وهو قاعد كده هو كان ملاحظ. He noticed that he looked like Sydney Carton looked like Darnay, Charles Darnay. And he wrote a note about it and gave it to Stryver. اداها له كده على جنب. Then Mr. Stryver asked the witness to focus on Sydney Carton, then to focus on Charles Darnay. And he asked him, "Are you sure now that you hadn't seen this prisoner before?" He said at first no. "So I want you to look at my assistant, Mr. Sydney Carton." When he looked at Sydney Carton, the witness became so confused that he couldn't say it was certainly Sydney Carton, the real accuser. Now, the two men looked like that everyone in the court was surprised. The witness could no longer be certain that the man he had seen in France was Darnay, so his testimony was of no value. Mr. Stryver could prove that all their testimony was of no value يا جماعة. خلاص كسر كل الشهادات بتاعته. So, at last, Darnay was released from the charge من التهمة ديت of high treason and he was set free. You see, Manet was very happy that Mr. Charles Darnay was set free because she started to admire him. And also he admired. But another one was watching them. اللي انت شايفه قدامك ده دلوقتي. Sydney Carton. Yes. Sydney Carton was the assistant of Mr. Stryver. He was a real man, a good one, so intelligent, so loyal to his employer اللي هو Mr. Stryver. By the way, he liked Lucy Manette so much. وهتبدأ الغيرة بينه وبين مين يا جماعة؟ Yes, بينه وبين تشارلز. فهنقول هنا, do you think that Sydney Carton was as careless as he looked? What do you think so? هنقدر نقول هنا ايه؟ Sydney Carton was not as careless as he looked. Why? He was a hard worker and intelligent. He prepared everything to Mr. Stryver, and he gave all the cases ready for Mr. Stryver to win. And Mr. Stryver could win fame and money. He also had a great power of observation. Why? And understanding as well. At first, he was the only one who noticed the resemblance between himself and Darnay. And he wrote a note to Mr. Stryver about it. And he was the main reason to save Darnay's life. And he was also the first one to notice that Lucy was going to faint. كان هيغمى عليها بقى عشان بدأ الشخص اللي هي معجبة بيه هيتحبس. And he told the officer to help her father to take her out. طيب why Stryver was not a famous why Stryver is a famous and Sydney Carton was not? Because Sydney Carton couldn't continue or complete his certificate in law. ما كملش يا جماعة في كلية الحقوق بتاعته. فعشان كده بقى شغال مساعد محامي. On your left, Charles Darnay. On your right, Sydney Carton. After the trial, Sydney Carton went out with Charles Darnay. Okay? They had a dinner together at a tavern and they started to speak honestly to each other. After the trial, Carton and Darnay went to eat together. Carton suggested that they drink a toast to Miss Manet. يلا في صحتك في صحة مين؟ في صحة Miss Manet. He said that Darnay was lucky to be petted by and whipped for such a lady. كان بيحسده يا جماعة على إيه؟ إن he was loved or liked or admired by such a lady اللي هي لوسي مانات. Charles Darnay thanked Carton for saving his life. But Sidney Carton said that he needs no thanks. أنا مش عايز إنك تشكرني. Okay? I did my duty. Then he asked Charles Darnay a very good question. قال له إيه؟ Do you think that I like you? Darnay was honest in this moment and he said that I think that no, you don't like me. Carton said that he was disappointed. قال إيه إن هو disappointed because no one cared for him and he cared for no one on this earth. Okay? But Darnay left ما عجبوش الحوار وقدر يمشي. استطاع إنه يمشي ودفع الفاتورة ومشي. But Carton went to a mirror and looked at himself. He spoke to his reflection. بص لنفسه في المراية قعد يتكلم about his feeling for Darnay. And he discovered or found out that he didn't like him. But for what reason he didn't like him? He didn't like him because Miss Lucy Manette liked him or loved him, while his love to her was not felt at all. Let's move to another incident. It was very important. Do you remember the broken cask when the red wine was on the floor in front of Monsieur Defarge Inn? There was a man who wrote the word blood on the wall. This tall man had a small or little child. Now, there was a carriage, this carriage for the Marquis, اللي هو يا جماعة ruler of France, ran over in the streets بتجري بسرعة جدا, and people were running in front of the carriage and going away on the left, on the right, and so on. But unfortunately, the carriage hit and killed a small child. This small child was 4 Gaspards. Okay? The Marquis was not concerned about the child. When his driver told him that the child was dead, Excellency, he gave no care. And he cared only about his horses. وراح قال لهم ايه؟ هو ايه ده؟ مش قادرين تربوا عيالكم؟ Can't you take care of your children? عارفين انتوا تسببتوا لايه في اللي الحصان بتاعه انه يتعور؟ He cared about his horses and the safety of the horse and the carriage itself. Then his father Gaspard shouted, killed, dead. This was Gaspard يا جماعة, اسمه Gaspard. Then the Marquis with no mercy gave him a coin. قال له خد الcoin, that's much better for him. Okay? Then the Marquis left. Gaspard wanted to do something, but he was prevented by Monsieur Defarge. Monsieur Defarge stopped him. Monsieur Defarge had philosophy and told him that's much better for the little child or for the little thing to die than to live in poverty. قال له ده أحسن إن ابنك مات دلوقتي عشان ما يعيش في الفقر اللي إحنا عايشين فيه. Then the Marquis said, drive fast. سوق بسرعة. يعني ولا همه هو عمل إيه. Okay? And now, do you think that Darnay and the Marquis were different? طب وإيه العلاقة ما بينهم أصلا يا مستر؟ Charles Darnay is a Frenchman and the Marquis was his uncle. Darnay and his uncle had different opinions. The Marquis believed that cruelty and injustice caused fear, and fear causes respect. هو التعامل معهم كده, مع البيزنس, مع الناس بتوعه, ان نعملهم بالقسوة ونعملهم بالظلم, ده هيخوفهم, والخوف هيجيب الاحترام. طيب, while Darnay believed that mercy and justice cause love, and love causes respect. Darnay told his uncle, the Marquis, that he thought his family had done wrong. قال له احنا بنتعامل غلط مع الناس. قال له وي, كان بيشاور على نفسه كده. احنا الاتنين, they had treated the poor very badly. Darnay refused to live as his family. ما هو رفض تماما ان هو يعيش بالظلم ده, and decided to live by working in England, and he worked as a French by the way. عشان كده كان بيسافر يا جماعة بين انجلترا وفرنسا كل شوية, وكان مخبي اسمه عشان الناس بتكره اسم الماركيز. After the death of the Marquis, when the property of the family would become his, أول ما عمه ده مات, طب مين مات ازاي بقى؟ He was killed by, ها, by مين يا جماعة تخيلوا؟ Gaspard. Yes, Gaspard killed the Marquis. ماشي؟ انتقاما لمين؟ انتقاما لابنه. Darnay was going to give it up and let poor people take it. كان عايز يا جماعة يسيب الحكم للفقراء. This had been his mother's dying wish. كانت والدته بتوصيه بكده. So here you can say that Darnay was completely different. Not only different, was completely different. You know that the Marquis hated his nephew, okay? And he wanted him to be in trouble when he was in England. Inshallah, I hope that you have enjoyed this time. Thank you for this and see you next time, inshallah.